We are live. Good morning. We are live. How are you, Mehra? Yeah. We had some technical difficulties. I want just to apologize for those who were waiting for us. Good morning, everyone. We just had some technical difficulties in the morning. And good morning, everyone in Middle East and Africa. Good afternoon for those who are in Asia Pacific. And how are you, Mehra? We are back again for the culture conversations. Maybe this is our 6th episode, right?
Yes, right.
Oh, yes. We've been through many topics in the culture. We talked about the culture, how to be intentional, and how to the leadership, and the culture of fitness. And maybe today, I guess it was something related to yesterday's discussion with Diana Ideas about money and the money conversations. Actually, we had a discussion about trusting and creating conversations about money. And actually here came, when it's a cultural component in organizations and how we can have a culture, how we can put psychological safety and set culture and, of candor and openness about different topics, money and other things. How can you tell that this can be done, or, what is the value of doing this or this? First of all, welcome and good morning. Just, I jumped into the topic directly. How are you, Mehra, today? Yeah.
All good. And it's an interesting topic, so I understand why you jumped into it directly. Actually, from different perspectives, openness is the link between being open and transparent and building trust in the organization. It's directly linked. And of course, if we're talking about a healthy culture, so trust is one of the values, or openness is one of the values that we should see inside the organization. And trust should be in the system, should be felt and reflected on the system, as we mentioned before, on the hard side and the soft side of the organization. So trust, yes, I totally agree with you. Trust is really important. So let's start.
Okay, so that's great. So what is exactly, the impact of not having, psychological safety, or indicators that there is no psychological safety in that safe space? How can, you see this, and how can you actually, and what is the impact of long-term having it in the organization? I believe that there are many questions, so where do you want to start? Just, because there's totally different questions,
Yeah. Let's start with your question. What's the difference, or how the culture will look like when psychological safety is not one of the things that leaders work in daily in order to make sure that it's in the system, and trust is missing somehow. So let's take two examples, and I have seen these two examples during the last period. One organization consisting of a number of people who are uh, sort of it's a startup, and most of the team are still immature, so lots and lots of things that they don't know about how to run a business. They technically they are great, they are doing handcraft and so technically they are great, they understand they totally understand the industry, they totally understand what needs to be done. However, when it comes to running a business and all that, they still have lots and lots of way to go. And their mentors, because they built this relationship of trust. I saw how those people receive really difficult feedback. It's difficult messages and difficult feedback and scary ones sometimes on things related to business. They receive it openly. They receive it with the mindset of, now let's think how we can deal with this. Now let's think how we can solve these problems, how we can better do things, how we can develop, and how can we learn. So because of this trust that the mentors were able to build with this the small group of founders for this startup, openness here had another dimension, or had another. It really had an impact. Another organization, and recently I've been introduced to, and you can see that trust is missing in the system. So in one incident, someone made a mistake. People do mistakes inside the organization, and it's something that happens. But when this person did made a mistake, it was all pointing fingers, highlighting the mistake, highlighting all the limitations of this person, and so on, forgetting all about the problem itself, and that needs to be solved, forgetting about that this person is we will continue to learn, and forgetting about all that. So when it comes to openness inside the openness inside the organization as a value, transparency as a value, we need to make sure that all the behaviors of the leadership and the system, all the system, is inducing trust, not inducing mistrust inside the system.
Okay, so for instance, you talked in the beginning about the maturity of the staff, that they're technically good, but they're not yet, they don't understand the full picture of the business, handling finances, and you actually hear it's important to make them safe to voice out. However, there are some information they need to know, and some information it's not important for them at this moment to know and maybe discuss. It's not on the table to discuss. So how can create safety for both cases? It's getting to me like a resemblance. If you're a dad at home or something, there are some topics you can actually discuss with your children, and some topics you have to handle and keep some safety for them to open it. And actually they should have to understand boundaries, where they can actually, and this is a place where we can actually discuss it now. It can be discussed after maybe 13 years. This can be discussed after puberty. This can be discussed while in college, but it's okay that you can actually raise questions here and there is an answer that fits. So I feel it's like kind of positive parenting or something like this, for management to actually decide when and how to talk about different issues with different levels of maturity in the organization. Is it a good resemblance or not?
It's one of the things leadership. One of the things. So as you know, and as we have mentioned before, in order to make sure that this any value is alive inside the organization, I need to align the system, the whole system, the hard side, the soft side, the leadership profile, the management practices. I need to align and engage all levels in a way, in order to make sure that this value is alive inside the system and is growing and is reflecting on our daily behaviors. So one of the things is for the leadership to know when to be open about the topic, when not, when to share everything with the whole group, and when to share with the specific group of people, and then later share with another group. The most important thing, never a space for question marks, for interpretation, for people's interpretation. Don't leave a space for people to fill in the dots in the empty places. This hinders transparency and trust actually in the organization big time. So if you are as a leader, you are going to choose when to talk about what and with who. Gradually, town meeting that spread the message. Whatever your plan is, make sure not to leave empty spaces where people will go and fill it. And when people go and fill it, the insecurities, their own insecurities, the preferences, history, stories play a big role in this area, and it might not be on the sake of the organization.
Okay, so here it's about, you know, what needs to be discussed and putting dynamics to discuss it. And
Yes.
you know, I remember these days when I was, you know, in the beginning of my career, you know, when these, yani there were some young, you know, ambitious professionals who actually joined the organization, and they only had their college years, and it was their first experience literally in a multinational organization. And they went to take an MBA course, which is recommended for at least 3 years of experience. You know, however, they accepted them with zero experience or the first year of experience. You know, and during their study, they studied, you know, something like organization culture, HR practices, leadership, you know, these, you know, MBA topics. And they were actually trying to compare what is happening in the organization with what they're theoretically studying. And they were
Yeah.
telling that this, yani, one of the large multinationals that's already a school of, you know, of a leadership model to study everywhere in the world, you know. And they were actually criticizing the leadership behaviors and practices, you know, seeing that it's, you know, it's totally obscene. You know, it's totally defying the science that they are studying in the, you know, in their schools. You know, I believe at this stage, you know, there is some level of, you know, you know, a dissonance between what they are studying and what the leadership is practicing. And the leadership model here is totally different than the schools that they are already, or the literature they're already reviewing, you know, because they're two different cultures, two different models. They're different. Maybe if they researched more, they would have seen studies on this leadership model, you know, with this
Yes.
different culture. So how can such a conversation, you know, when this person was actually he was voicing out to a manager who is actually 10 steps or 11 steps down in the chain of command in the organization. And the manager couldn't handle actually because it was, you know, the discussions were totally above his level of, you know, or comprehension, understanding, maturity, and this stuff. The manager was only something like 6 or 7 years of experience. And, you know, to start having a serious discussion with someone, who, you know, something like 15 or 20 years there in the organization with understanding the culture, the leadership model, already studied only programs, you know, and already well, you know, flourished and trained leader who can actually have such a conversation and actually connect. It was too far away, you know,
Yes.
and it ended up with most of these people who already did this early on studying and literature. They left the organization for other,
Yeah.
you know, consultancy firms, and they learned in their life the hard way because I met them afterwards. You know, they after 10 years or something or 15 years, they already matured. They understood. You know, and you understand that it was, you know,
Yes. Yes.
oh,
Yes. I got your point. Actually, that's why we always say organizations transform when people transform. And you can't change the organization, and you can't change how people behave. You can change the culture of the organization if the leadership is not big part, actually taking a leading part in this transformation journey. So this manager who had 20-25 years of experience in this company, made lots and lots of success in all that, could have used this moment, could have used this conversation as a learning opportunity for this employee, either for him or for the employee. So maybe this new person coming with a fresh eye, fresh look, have seen things that you have missed as a manager being in this place for such long time. So maybe if he listen to him, he might see things that are not for him, are not that obvious or not that clear because of because of the time, the period he spent in the organization. On the other hand, the employee who came with questions, ideas, models that he learned and he wanted to apply, or he wanted to map the organization against, he came with all that, and it could have been a perfect opportunity for him to learn and to grow, rather than just dismissing him without giving him answers. But in order for this manager to do so, he must be aware, and he must always be in the state of, I'm continuously growing, I'm continuously learning. There is something that is of, of definitely there's something of value out of the feedback that I'm receiving, even if I don't agree with 90% of the feedback.
Okay.
On the other side, maybe this young employee was somehow was not able to share feedback in a proper way, deliver the message in a proper way. And maybe he could also have helped him to share the feedback and share his view and share his questions in a constructive or in a way that they can both discuss and come to conclusion.
Okay. Tell me, يعني Mehra, what could be a good, what do you call it? What could be a good practice to conduct such discussions and create paths for open discussions, when people are something, when things happen like inflation, inflation, higher inflation rate in a year which is not matching, for instance,
Yeah.
the increasing rate, and the ability of the organization to compensate the gap, in this. Or sometimes when something like what happened here, and the dollar, rate when it happened, like they had this open market, and things like financial crises that are happening, and the organization responding. How can the organization create safety for people to talk? And when it is too much, complaining, talking, nagging, it's a negative talk versus it is an open and safe discussion to handle in the organization.
Okay, so let's agree on something. There is no such thing as over communication. so, whenever the leadership spend time and effort communicating with the organization, talking about the updates, the challenges, the changes. Over communication is not harmful, as long as, of course, that we are not spending all day in meetings, and we're communicating without doing any actual work. But there's no such thing as over communication, especially for leadership. When the cases that you mentioned, when there is a crisis, when we are facing a big challenge, all that, time is really important. Time is really important. Whatever people hear first, just it just settles somehow in their brains, and you try to change it. However, if you act promptly to the regarding time, so whenever there is a situation where question marks are flying everywhere, the leadership here should intervene and should communicate, even if the communication will entail a message such as, we don't have a clear picture yet. However, we're studying the situation, we're studying plans, we'll get back to you, and we want to assure you that we'll work on it, and we want you to be. We want you to feel safe and not to panic. But even if this would be the message, it's much better than staying in silence, staying in the dark, and not communicating and isolating from the organization. So time is important. honesty, of course, is really important. Showing up, saying that everything is okay or everything is it's a disaster, while you have not actually studied the situation, and or already you have plans, and so us honesty here is really important. And people are not people are smart, and they will definitely and feel first and then understand if the organization is being clear and transparent and open enough or not. This is number two. Number three is uh, in order to prepare the organization for such situations. And I really hope that we don't see any of these big changes again. But in order to prepare the organization, you need to have a culture of sharing feedback, listening to each other, listening to feedback. And there are lots of things that you can do in order to sort of train people in your organization on how to receive feedback, how to be transparent. One of the really it will be a simple exercise that I saw a manager doing regularly in his weekly meeting for years in one of the big telecom organizations, and it impacted the team uh, uh, very positive. Is that in each meeting they have 1 minute for each one to say what they want to stop doing, what they want to tell someone else, what this person wants him to stop doing, start doing, and continue doing. What this manager succeeded in doing by doing this exercise in each meeting is that he built trust in the team, between the team itself. He built and he helped them build trust in their capabilities, their strengths, and they started building on that. So practices, small management practices to prepare the organization and to prepare everyone in the organization on how to receive feedback, how to give feedback in a transparent, open, constructive way, and timely action. I believe that these two things are the most important things.
Okay, wow, that's really amazing. That's how you said it. And actually, there's a spotlight here on looking at the maturity of people, and that they are already okay, and they can actually have the ability to understand. The so it maybe it's coming in from the emotion or the energy. The leadership is already communicating their message. Can we say that? It's coming from
Yes,
a place of trust. It's coming in from a place that it's okay.
sure,
It's okay. Yeah.
sure. And I just I'm not comfortable with the material, the what you said with maturity people, because if the people inside the organization are not ready to receive feedback, and not open for the different messages that come from the system, it's a leadership responsibility. It's a leadership responsibility. Yes, when a fresh grad comes to the organization, he needs a certain work and certain way to deal with, different than someone with 10, 15, 20 years of experience. But uh, maybe because I saw how people use maturity in different places where uh, it's sort of it's used to frame people in a certain way that they will not understand. They are not ready now to understand. They will not receive the message in a positive way, so let's not communicate because they are not mature enough. I'm not comfortable with using it. However,
Okay.
if you are, yes, if you are as a manager or as a leader, if you are practicing transparency, openness in everything. And when people do mistakes, we don't point fingers. We support. We solve the problem. When there is a feedback that is not valid, you think it's not valid. You try to validate. You get more feedback. You get back to the person who gave the feedback with the outcomes, with the actions, and so on. If these are your behaviors as a manager or a leader, people will be able to receive whatever message you want to say.
Okay. So actually, let's see something, like a scenario I sometimes saw when in some organizations there are leaders who are very open. They always share. They always talk from a place of trust. However, in some incidents, you can find some people who are always in this mind of this conspiracy theory. This not always there is something, they connect dotted lines that are not connected and start finding a place where that's skepticizing or criticizing or rumoring about what is happening, or what is
Yes.
offered from the leadership. And I believe that this in a way creates some rumors, creates some silos. Sometimes they speak a lot one to one. They create lobbies inside the organization. So
Yes.
how can leadership address such issues? And especially when they're
Actually,
being candid
yes.
and
Actually,
yeah.
I dealt with this scenario in with one of the companies I worked with, and there was a huge change in the leadership. Actually, they planned a great communication plan. They communicated across the organization in different events with different ways. Change was clear with the impact of it on each department. Each team was clear and everything. And still, we might have like one or two who are overly critical, skeptical, as you mentioned, that they are not convinced, or they're not okay with whatever is being said. One really good thing that that time that I advised the team to do, and actually, yes, it made a huge difference, is uh, to engage this person in the change itself, in the change process itself. um, Create a cross-functional team who is responsible for solving problems related to this big change. Create a team that should be collecting feedback or doing focus groups inside the organization to make sure that how this change is impacting different groups. Whatever, just engage this person in all the plans and all the actions taking place on the ground with different functions, different teams on different levels, in order for him or her to see and be part of all the planning that is taking place, and what's being told to the employees that we are doing in order to solve the problem and so on. When you do that, they are part
Even if
of the
they are
plan.
not apparently competent.
Yes, yes, yes. Of course, here it depends on the impact of their talks and whatever their assumptions and all that, and the influence that they have inside the organization. So if they are high influencers, and whatever they are saying in the corridor, and all the questions are creating a bad dynamic inside the organization, yes, just engage them. You can teach them a skill. You can assign a coach for them. You can assign someone to support them in every exercise they are doing. But being part of this will help them see and believe, and all whatever they've been saying will turn into the opposite.
Something while you were saying this, I recall also one organization that I worked with, that there were some people who were really talents that are really technically, totally competent in what they do in technical, and their technical skills and deliverables, they're really, really good. And actually, when they were feeling ousted, they were feeling out of the decision-making process, from being listened to, from being understood. They always started, lobbying, starting putting their social capital into practice, and they instead of, we are not listened to, and we are saying things that we believe in its validity. Nobody's answering us. So we will get the answers from another place. So they start seeking the answers from their social capital.
Yes.
And actually, in a way, it sometimes intrigues a lot the leaders. And this is, in many cases, I saw that this was a very great trigger, and they are always accused of being negative spreading. And in two situations, there were two different approaches. One of them was actually what you said here is actually acknowledging them and actually putting them near the decision-making process. Like as spokesman for, and actually taking, the listening to all the objections or all the questions and responding to them one by one. And in such a case, one of these cases, the example that I'm talking about, it came up with very valid micro changes that really made a big difference, because they were seeing very, very fine details that really, that can make or break attracting talents, for instance, or keeping people motivated, or maybe the durability or sustainability of their products and their product cycles. They're seeing things that are not maybe thought of in the process itself, or the organization leadership itself. In the other case, because there were many, in a way, there was an idea of creating an idea box, especially those who are innovators, who look to new ideas, fresh perspectives, and they need to be listened to. But however, they create lots and massive, they're massive idea machines. In some cases, you have to say no. You have to actually, tell them that we have priorities. So what happens is just put all the ideas in one place, put an idea box, and come here and see if you're in my place. Create a committee and see what are your priorities, and why is this a priority. Give them weight and see why. So putting this exercise makes them understand that their ideas are being seen, and on the other side, they see its rank in the priorities of the execution of the organization, and they can see the capacity of executing steps, and they understand that they're maybe hasting up things that can be hasted, and it's everything. Transformation takes time, and there are priorities, and there is focus, and engaging them in this way may make them actually feel more listened to, attended to, and sometimes they take it, like playfully. It's changes instead of being challengers, and things like coming in with this voice of I don't like what you're doing. I'm having a better idea, and this kind of you can't think good enough like me.
And this might be actually time consuming, big time, because of the time spent in conversations, trying to explain things again to this person or to this group, listening to all the ideas that they're sharing and they want to implement, trying to explain things from different perspectives in order for them in order for all the group to share the same ground and see how we prioritize things according to certain criteria. So it is time consuming. But again, ignoring these people inside the organization when there is a change taking place, or when there is something that is really big, ignoring them will definitely harm the organization and have the culture and the team morale. Including them while not keeping the balance between, so the leadership, we are the one who is responsible for guiding the organization in different directions, in saying no to sometimes, and saying yes many other times, and the balance between you are engaged, let's listen to you, let's try to implement whatever you are suggesting, and it should be balance, okay? And it is time consuming, but I believe it's a time well spent.
Okay, that's great, Mehra. Mehra, now as we are approaching, this, we spent 34 minutes. It was, it really went through very, very fast. Ibrahim Ramadan is actually participating with, sometimes leaders use this group for their benefit to spread ideas. Is it right? So that's what Ibrahim is saying. So So what can you say about this?
Again, their ideas. If you mean to communicate certain message to different groups inside the organization, yes, yeah. Sometimes you need to, as a leader to the organization, you need to you need to make sure that the message is cascaded well across different groups inside the organization. Hence, you try to use managers, head of department, influencers, people who are, others listen to. You try to spread the message through them. As long as it's something that is not true, then there is nothing wrong about using this tool or this mechanism. Sorry.
Okay. So I really, really want to thank you actually for these inputs. They're really valuable. And here Ibrahim is responding again and saying sometimes keeping the company value and sometimes for personal performance. That's what he says. So,
That's yes. That's why I said as long as this approach is being used for the best of everyone, then it's totally okay. But yeah, I agree that there are some practices that we do not encourage, and at the end,
this saying of Asfura,
yes, yes.
I think the whisper, the bird whisperer,
Yeah, and they use it because there is no trust in the system. People do not trust what you are saying. So how will I communicate the message? I will send someone else deliver this message to you. But if we trust the leadership, if we trust any communication coming from the organization, then it is easily cascaded. The message is easily cascaded.
Amazing. So Mehra, what do you like to say in the end of this episode? What they call it, what is it about the psychological safety, candor, in a very short learning, to everyone who's listening to us?
Okay, so I do have two messages. The first message: observe the behaviors, especially when problems occur inside the organization. Do people collaborate to solve the problem? Do people ignore who did it versus what happened, and how we can work together in order to correct things and make things right? Or do people tend to just point fingers, blame others, and problem stays days and days and days not solved, while people are just blaming each other? Um, um, I see the second behavior. I used to see it actually with different organizations that I used to consult with. Things are changing. Leadership are really transforming, and this is really good. But again, observe is see how people behave in difficult situations, and this would give you a true message on what sort of culture that you have inside the organization. The other message is that I believe, openness is one of my personal values. So I believe that openness, transparency are really important for any team to make wonders in magic.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
really
amazing.
important value. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mehra, for that. And actually, Ibrahim just sent a message now. Maybe you can discuss the next episode or something. It's about the remote culture spreading, how we can actually work with cultures in the absence of face-to-face communication. I guess this can be a very good discussion for the next episode. That's on.
Yes, sure.
I believe
Thank
that
you. Thank you, Ibrahim. Yes.
we're having this on 29th of September, 9 a.m. Cairo local time too, right?
Yes.
And if you want to know more about culture transformation, we can actually contact Mehra Mamdouh, and this is her LinkedIn profile. And also, if any leader wants to actually, or organizations that are in need in transformation through values workshop or values for partnership, can actually contact also Mehra Mamdouh here in the, this is the contact on LinkedIn. And hopefully for those who are interested in practicing and maybe working with team coaching and understanding how to work with it, this is something that we offer in Authentic Coaching Academy and Innovation Creed. It's you can actually scan this barcode, and we will start on 16th of October, and it's 90 hours ACSTH Team and Culture Transformation Program that we are providing. Thank you all for listening to us on this episode, and thank you, Mehra, for being there for us. And I believe that it was really a very good talk today, and maybe it still continues. And maybe we can talk about remote culture next time and see how it will go. Thank you, Mehra.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.